Welcome. It's Mike Bundrent with the NLP Center. This is what we call a deep dive. We're just going to focus on one of the elements in the NLP training. This one is called the 12 states of attention, sort of like submodalities in Unit 7 of the practitioner training. This 12 states of attention, which is Module 3 of the Master Practitioner training, it is an extension of the VAK model, which is Module 2 in the NLP Practitioner training. And it's a really cool, useful extension of the VAK model that gives us lots of different ways to think about our attention, and leads to some pretty cool exercises and activities that you can use yourself, you can use as a coach, and so on and so forth. What I'll do is give a kind of a brief overview of the model. It really breaks down into some simple concepts, and I will take, hopefully about 5 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, and we'll just review it. And I'm pretty confident that whether you if you haven't reviewed this material before, if you haven't studied it, then you'll have a working knowledge of it in the next few minutes. So in NLP, V, A, and K stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Whatever we are seeing, hearing, or feeling, kinesthetic stands for feelings. And this suggests that our attention is largely consists of what we see, hear, and feel. Now, the five senses, there's taste and smell, probably factor a little less into communication. And we could talk about intuition, which some people think of as a blend of sort of unconscious awareness through the five senses. Other people think there's a sixth sense or so forth, but we won't really go into that. We'll kind of stick with the basics, what we see, hear, and feel. So in the practitioner training module 2, it talks about this. When we think thoughts, that's kind of a vague concept. When you break it down, thoughts are made up of inner pictures, literal images in our mind that we quote unquote look at. If I imagine an ice cream cone, I literally can create a picture of an ice cream cone in my mind and look at that ice cream cone. And that would be a thought, a visual thought. I can have auditory thoughts, of course, talking to myself, remembering or imagining sounds and so forth. And then we could even think of feelings, impressions, and so on and so forth as thoughts. They're certainly information that I feel in my body. So the VAK model suggests that we're thinking and communicating through these three modalities. And if I am communicating with you and I'm sharing my thoughts with you, it might be helpful for you to know if I'm sharing my inner images with you, my inner sounds, literal thoughts in the form of sounds that are going through my mind, or me talking to myself, or if I'm sharing my feelings, and perhaps what combination of those. And if you know that I'm sharing inner images with you, it might be easier for you to understand me, connect with me, get specific with me about my thoughts if you know that they're coming in the form of an image, a sound, or a feeling, or again, some combination of those things. So in communication, it plays out that way. On the inside, if I'm just thinking about something, maybe it's a problem I have, maybe it's a goal I have, and I can become aware, it's like, what image do I have in my mind that represents this? So if I have a problem that's I'm trying to figure out, that I'm kind of stuck in, I might just be sort of stuck in that problem without being aware of the actual image in my mind of that problem. And if I do become aware of the image of my mind and that problem, I might notice different things about that image that kind of make it problematic. Like maybe the image, as far as the size of the image in my mind, maybe that image is huge, right? And overwhelming. It's like, all the stuff I have to do today, I can't, it's just overwhelming. It's bearing down on me. And I become aware of this image in my mind that is actually a very large image, like movie screen size image of all the stuff I have to do all mixed in together. And I wonder if the actual size of that image has any bearing on how I'm feeling about my to-do list for the day. What if I shrunk that image down? Doesn't change the content of the image. It just makes it a lot less overwhelming. So we play around with our thoughts, and NLP sometimes we like to call the VAK model the structure of our thoughts, the structure, how our mind thinks. We think in image, sounds, and feelings. Let's get really specific about them. And it gives us a lot of choices or control over how we are thinking. So years and years and years ago, back in the 90s, when I was living in New Mexico near Santa Fe, and sort of going back and forth to Japan to train and learning with the folks at NLP Santa Fe, we developed this model called the 12 states of attention. And I learned it upon its first development. I wasn't a developer of it, but a member of the training team there. And it really adds a few elements to VAK that turns 3 states of attention into 12 states of attention. So I'll break it down. If you look here under the V, this is the visual modality, what we're seeing. We have VI and VE. And I don't know if this type down here is too small for you to read, but basically it says, in the visual modality, there are the internal images, like that ice cream cone image I made in my mind that is clearly internal. It's within me. And then there are things that we see on the outside. So on the inside, I can look at an image of a made-up ice cream cone. And on the outside, I'm here looking at my desk, looking at a wall, a lamp, a fan, Amazon Alexa thing. I'm just looking at objects in the room on the outside. I could turn my attention back on the inside. Aha, there's my made-up ice cream cone. Really, really simple stuff. So, and that applies to the auditory and the kinesthetic. Auditory, I can listen, remember a piece of music in my mind. And that's auditory internal, or AI. Auditory external, turn my attention outside, I can hear the sound of my little fan motor humming along. So hearing a symphony that I went to a few months ago on the inside, turn my attention to the outside, there's a little fan hum. That's it, inside and outside. Kinesthetic, internal and external. I can be sensations, feelings, emotions. I can sit here and feel the thump of my heart beating. I can feel a sort of mild sense of excitement in my belly. That's on the inside. On the outside, I can feel this sort of gentle breeze from the fan blowing across my hand. I can feel the texture of my desk. I can feel sort of my back against the chair. Sensations on the outside, temperature of the room. So on kinesthetic, it's what do I feel inside my skin. On the internal, the external is what's outside my skin that I'm feeling. So internal, external, and we go from 3 states to 6 states. Just saying visual inside, outside, auditory inside, outside, kinesthetic inside, outside. Okay, let's go on to the next distinction, which is broad and narrow. So if we look at the visual, and we get down real small here at the bottom, we have visual internal. So now we're only talking about what I see inside myself, in my mind's eye. That visual internal can have a broad focus or a narrow focus. And then what I see outside myself can have a broad focus or a narrow focus. Now, on this one, it's easier to talk about the external first. So visual, external, narrow is a narrow focus. So I'm sitting here looking at the head of a pen, and it has a little yellow highlight marker with a cap on it. Okay, I'm just staring at the head of that pen. That would be a narrow focus. I'm looking at one point. Now, as I stare at the head of this pen with the yellow highlighter and the cap on it, I can soften my focus and, without moving my eyes, become aware of the entire room all at once. And that is just a matter of taking in the periphery. So I'm not focused on any one thing. As soon as I try to look at one thing, I lose the broad and I go into narrow. And if I keep staring at the head of this pen, I can bring my attention back to the head of this pen and go narrow, or I can soften and just sort of like move my awareness around the whole room, just sort of take in the whole room without moving my eyes. I know you all know what I'm talking about, but just try it for a second. Stare at one thing, maybe a key on your computer keyboard or the home button on your phone or anything. Stare at it, go, okay, this is narrow, very elementary, but then soften your vision, take in everything at once, and that is broad. Pretty basic stuff. Everybody get it? We used to do this thing where we would practice isolating one state and stay there as long as we could without allowing other states to interfere. And it's quite challenging. And our challenge used to be stare at your thumbnail for a minute and don't let any other state come into mind. And for me, I'd start staring at my thumbnail and a little voice inside my head would go, I'm doing it, right? I'm staring at my thumbnail. And now I'm no longer purely in visual, external, narrow. I've had auditory come in. So we used to sit around and practice isolating these states, and it's good attention training. Let's look at visual, internal, narrow. So if we go back to my ice cream cone picture and follow along, make up some picture in your own mind. I can look at that ice cream cone on the inside. It's got pink ice cream for some reason. And I can sort of stare at that pink ice cream on the inside the way that I was staring at the head of my pen on the outside and stare at it. And now I'm visual, internal, narrow. And at the same time, just like I do on the outside, I can soften, broaden my focus. And now I see this ice cream, but I'm aware that for quite some distance on all sides of it, I get sort of blank space, kind of gray-black space. And there's this ice cream cone sitting there, but it's in a much broader context. It's in a kind of a panorama context. So that would be doing the same thing on the inside that you did on the outside with a narrow and broad focus. Everyone try that for a second. Make something in your mind, an image in your mind, look at one narrow aspect of it, soften and go broader, find out what else is in your internal visual field. So we've turned the visual modality, we went from 1 to 2 to 4. Now the visual is made up of 4 different states: VIB, VIN, VEB, VEN. Internal, external, narrow, broad. The rest of the diagram is the exact same thing with the auditory and kinesthetic. Auditory internal broad, auditory internal narrow. If we go internal, with our auditory, we can do the same thing. Listen to some internal auditory, a specific piece of music, a voice playing in your mind, and then sort of expand your auditory and listen to everything going on in your mind at the same time. And again, it might be easier to do the external first. So let's do this. Tune into one sound in your immediate environment. For me, it's the humming of the little fan blowing here. And just listening to that sound and that sound alone. And then as I'm listening to it, I can expand my auditory and try to hear everything within earshot of me all going on at once, sort of like the cocktail party effect phenomenon. We have the ability to take in all kinds of simultaneous sounds. We don't necessarily tune into one specifically when we're in this broad state, but it's sort of like this sort of din going on all around us. If we're at a cocktail party, just hearing all the clinking and the voices and the movements and so forth. But do that right now wherever you are. Just listen to all the sounds you can hear on the outside all at once. And then flip and do it on the inside. You can hear yourself talk on the inside. That would be auditory internal narrow. You can remember a piece of music. You can remember specifically what somebody else said. You can remember the sound of a singer, a song. You can remember anything or imagine anything. It doesn't have to be your voice. It could be any sound specifically. Sound of a chainsaw, the sound of a bell tolling. Kinesthetic, same deal. Internal broad and internal narrow. So I have my focus on my heartbeat. I would consider that kinesthetic internal narrow. One area, left side of my chest, I can just feel that thump. Or if I have an emotion, let's say I have tension, I'm just feeling tense. I might pay attention to right where that is, and I feel this sort of band of tension right in a horizontal line across my solar plexus, right there. And, or I may feel, who knows what I'm feeling, but I locate it in one area of my body. I got a headache. It's in my right temple. Kinesthetic, internal narrow. Kinesthetic, internal broad is kind of how I'm feeling all over on the inside, not narrowed in on one specific location, but sort of the general overall feeling in my body. Can I take all of that in at once? And so try that both ways. Focus in on one specific area. You might focus on your belly or your chest or wherever you want. What are you feeling right now in that specific area? And then broaden your attention to what are you feeling all over on the inside. Everyone able to make that distinction? Specific area, specific location versus kind of all over? Kinesthetic, external, narrow and broad. So external narrow, I'm resting my right elbow on my desk. What's that connection between the elbow, the outside of my skin, and the desk feel like? The pressure, et cetera, et cetera. Poking the pin, the head of the pin into my left forearm. There it is. The pressure, tiny bit of pain in one specific area. That's narrow. Same thing on the outside. What am I feeling directly on the outside of my skin in one specific area of my body versus what am I feeling on the outside of my skin all over the place? And there's where my attention sort of is simultaneously aware of, the weight of my body against the chair, the connection between the chair and my to my legs, my arms, resting on the chair and desk, the wind to the fan blowing across me, the temperature of the room in general. And it's sort of, we're kind of taking all of that in at once without necessarily processing and understanding each one individually. It's just sort of, I got to let go and generally be aware of this sort of broad connection between my skin and the environment that I'm in all over the place. And my attention may gently sort of move around, mine does anyways, without necessarily stopping to narrow in on one place. That's kind of the way that I experience it. Try those: kinesthetic external broad and external narrow. We talk a lot about primary modalities in NLP, and that would be sort of these three modalities, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which one am I most familiar with? Which one do I rely on the most? Which one do I use the most? And it may be that I'm a highly sort of quote unquote visual person, so I think predominantly in pictures, I communicate in pictures, and so on and so forth. And therefore I'm less familiar with maybe the auditory and or kinesthetic. But if that's the case, and some people do really favor one modality over the others, other people are somewhat balanced among all three. So the preference or primary isn't necessarily a hard distinction. The reality is all of us have all of these things going on all the time within us. And so if I'm having a feeling, then I can give that feeling voice. I can remember the image that goes with that feeling, or imagine what image might go along with that feeling. And so it's a really good idea to sort of connect the dots among all three. And it's possible that there are people who go, you know what, I just don't get pictures in my mind. I suggest that those pictures are unconscious and you could learn to see them, or you can develop that skill. So with all of us going through this exercise, some of the specific states are going to seem easier, more natural than others. And some of them are just going to seem challenging. But everyone has, assuming no organic disabilities, assuming that everybody has the ability to access all 12 states. Okay, so there they are, the 12 states. Simple concepts. We got visual, auditory, kinesthetic, internal, external, narrow, and broad. That's it. Same pattern across all three of the modalities. And there you have 12 states of attention. Now, what do we do with them? Let's talk about the general principles. Broad states in general, and we're talking about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, they tend to be more relaxing, sort of similar to dissociation. Whereas if you notice, feelings and internal voices that are negative, that get us stuck, tend to be narrow. When I'm feeling tension, when I'm feeling states in which I'm stuck in, very often, not always, those are really narrow. If I'm feeling stressed or tense, it usually is concentrated somewhere. It's like I may feel it in my neck. I may feel my chest is just really, really tight in one area. If I'm feeling guilt, I may just feel it in the pit of my stomach. I don't feel it in my toes. I feel it. A lot of the emotions that we get stuck in are sort of located in areas of our torso. But broad states, a lot of times broad states, like, well, hey, I'm just chilling out. I'm happy. Where do you feel happy? Well, kind of all over. I mean, it's not necessarily located. You can locate it, but it's more common that sort of positive, resourceful states or relaxed states are a little bit broader. And so one of the things that we thought was interesting. It's like, well, what would happen if we turned a narrow stuck state into a broad state? We did nothing other than take that narrow tension that you're feeling right on your sternum, right on your chest bone. We took that narrow tension, we just sort of tried to expand it to make it broad. Just that alone, would that do anything? And sometimes it does. If you take a narrow stuck state and you imagine just, let it spread. It's interesting. It might not be a good idea for you. I don't know. You have to try it. But in many cases, as it spreads, it moves and it dissipates. And so turning your attention, expanding a narrow state that you don't want, expanding into a broad state, often dissipates the narrow stuck state. The fear in that is if I take my anxiety that I'm just, just weighing down on my chest, and I expand it, then I'll go from feeling anxious in my chest to anxious all over, and it'll just overcome me. It usually doesn't, though. It usually dissipates. It's like there's a certain quantity of it, and you spread it out over a greater distance, and it's somehow easier to deal with. No guarantees, but that often is the case. And so you might try that for just a second. Think of a narrow, specific, yucky feeling that you have or can remember in one area of your body, locate it, and then just start to imagine it expanding and turning your attention to the broad, kind of all over. And if you can't imagine that feeling expanding, then don't focus on that feeling. Notice it's there, but keep your attention on the entire sort of broad spectrum of what you're feeling on the inside. And now that feeling, that yucky feeling, is taking up, rather than all of your attention, it's taking up sort of one little parcel on this, the whole area of real estate, right? Try that and see what you get. Okay, so let's look at some other things. Narrow states and submodalities. Again, it's when you get into narrow states, it's like I'm feeling this, I feel angry. I'm burning with anger. Where do you feel the anger? Well, location is a submodality. We're talking about practitioner training, module 7, the qualities of our feelings. And so the location, the size, the movement, the shape, and so forth. All of those, getting someone to focus narrowly is a really good sort of gateway into getting submodalities. And if you haven't studied submodalities yet, it's coming along. It's coming up. It's pretty cool. Module 7, practitioner training. External states bring people to the present moment. For those of you who studied the Tame the DMN protocol, that's in the personal development program. That exercise is all about what? Auditory, external, narrow, primarily, which is, you got a problem, you're stuck in it, stop, tune in to a specific noise like the hum of your computer, the hum of your refrigerator, the sound of distant traffic. Tune into that for a few moments until you calm down, then keep thinking or writing about it. If you're a coach, the 12 states are actually great for giving homework assignments to clients. It requires that you teach them the 12 states. It can be done pretty quickly, but you can assign them practice. So any of all the things that we've talked about today, expanding a negative feeling so it dissipates, expanding a positive feeling so it grows, moving your attention when you're stuck from internal to external. All of these things can be, it's like, you can say to a client, okay, great. Now, here's what I invite you to do this week. Every time you're feeling stuck, stop, focus on the environment around you, tune into a sound, then sit down, make notes about what your plan is. They do that once or twice a day. They are establishing a really, really healthy habit. If you find that the narrow to broad distinction is helpful to them, assign them to practice that for a few minutes every day. If you teach them the 12 states of attention, then you can say to them, look, here's what I want you to do every day. And by the way, I recommend that everybody here do this. Every day for 5 minutes as a meditation, access each one of the 12 states. Start at the top. Here I am, visual. Okay, visual, external, narrow. Focus. Broad, unfocused. Visual, internal. Focus. Broad, unfocused. Let's go to auditory and just walk yourself through those 12 states. It can be done really quickly, but it is an awesome way to develop VAK flexibility. You can notice the states that are hard for you to access and spend more time on those, and so on and so forth. You can invite people to teach them to access the broad states and say, do a meditation every day and just be in the broad states. Do a broad state meditation for a few minutes every day, and so on and so forth. You can have them identify during the day, when are you stuck? Okay, when you're stuck, first thing, label the state. I'm stuck. Okay, I am auditory, internal, narrow, negative voice, negative voice, negative voice in my head. Okay. Now, go to a state that would be helpful. Okay, I'm going to go auditory, internal, broad, or auditory, external, narrow, or broad, or visual, anything. Go somewhere else to change your state, or go auditory, internal, broad. Listen to that voice in a broader context. It might be easier to listen to. Maybe you'll learn something. So that just, once you know this and get a little practice with it, there's a large variety of things that you can do with it. Once somebody understands the 12 states, you can just give them 2 questions. Anytime they're stuck, what state are you in? Which state would you rather be in? And have somebody do that for a week and say, and email me every day when you identify the state you're in, the state you'd rather be in. Email me the answers to those 2 questions every day and what you did about it. So over a period of time, it's sort of like, it's coaching, but it's also training people to be really flexible. And if you develop a lot of flexibility among these 12 states, theoretically, you don't have to get stuck. You don't have to get stuck. It doesn't matter if I have a negative feeling, I'm not going to get stuck in it. I can expand it so where it's comfortable, it dissipates. I can think about what it means, what I need to learn from it. I can move on. If I remain highly focused on that one area and get stuck in the negativity, then that's what I am. It's hard to move on. It's hard to learn something. So if we develop a lot of flexibility, then we don't get stuck. We keep moving. We keep learning, and so forth. So points of leverage: going narrow to broad with a stuck state, and moving internal to external with a stuck state. Those are 2 high leverage moves that you can make, and I would practice those. Just practice. Go narrow to broad, internal to external when you're stuck. Again, flexibility among the stuck states so you don't get stuck. And the big trick is, how do you be aware of this model when you're stuck? All right, guys, take good care. We'll see you around next time.